be helped and provides enough funding to provide a meaningful benefit. So this year, where in previous years I always start this, we're looking at a potential crisis this winter, this year could be different. We could have enough money to basically start meeting the need. And I think the context, why did we need $5.1 billion? One was higher costs of home energy, even though prices have come down somewhat. In mid-July, we were talking about close to $5 a gallon for heating oil. Now it's around $3.50. Natural gas costs we expected to be about $200 higher to heat a home than we're looking at right now. But the prices are still higher than last year. So that's one thing. We're looking at a deepening, possibly a horrendous recession coming. So there'll be more people coming in for help. So is $5.1 billion enough? Frankly, we're looking at it. We're not sure, but it gives us something to work with. So when Congress comes back next year and looks at extending the continuing resolution for a full year, I think the question will come up then, well, do we need additional funding, and what makes the difference? And the last thing I'd like to add is, where we don't have comprehensive data on arrearages and shutoffs in the utility sector, the numbers we have been seeing really point to the impact of affordability. It's not just natural gas and heating oil, it's really underlying cost of gasoline. Gasoline is still, I think, right now about 80 cents a gallon than it was last year at this time. So families are spending, somewhere between $50 and $70 a month more for gasoline. Up to 2 months ago, they were spending $100 a month. So that basically took out all the surplus in their budget. The average family only saves about $300 a year. So what we were seeing in our surveys that we do is we ask families, what bills aren't they paying? And the one that had the highest number was their utility bill, because they have to pay their car bill first. They lose their car. They have to pay their house, their mortgage bill. They have to buy food. And the thing that they paid last was their utility bill. So what we're looking at is that this winter, we're hoping this really does make the difference in helping people address the cost of staying connected to the grid, as well as paying for delivered fuels. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Roger Cooper with the American Gas Association. I have two pieces of good news today, and they're about trends that are occurring in this country and will continue to occur that are very positive for American consumers. First, let's start out with climate change. That's a story that's mostly bad news. We all know that worldwide greenhouse emissions are rising every year. There is one amazing exception, surprising exception, unknown exception to that story, and that's the story of natural gas in the United States. Today, American natural gas consumers, homes and businesses, have been reducing their carbon footprint, reducing their greenhouse emissions, and that has been a reduction of 11.7%, almost 12% from 2000 to 2006. So total greenhouse gas emissions from the residential and commercial sector have declined. At the same time, the number of residential and commercial customers have increased. That's an amazing hat trick. I don't know of any other sector in the energy business where we can see that trend going on. These are EPA numbers from an EPA report this year. This decline is driven by a reduction in the use of natural gas per capita by customers. So we see a continuing decline in the amount of natural gas customers need to heat their homes and for natural gas services. We have seen a 31% decline in natural gas use per customer in the United States since 1980. So these two trends have been very positive for customers. As the price of natural gas itself has risen, we have masked some of that increase by actually lowering the bills by reducing use per customer. The second trend fits with this, and that is a topic that those of you in the more technical side of the press know as decoupling. This is breaking the link between a utility's profitability and how much energy a customer uses. And this has been a very, in the regulatory world where things move incredibly slowly, this has been a rather rapid change in the natural gas sector. Today, 34 utilities in 19 states no longer have their profitability tied to how much gas a customer uses. They are now economically indifferent. If a customer uses a lot of gas or a little gas, it makes no difference to the utility. and that covers 25 million customers here in the United States today out of our 64 million customers. This is a trend that it was a few years ago in 2004, we had California and Portland, Oregon, and Baltimore Gas and Electric, only 3 places where you had that. Today, we see it in 19 states, and every year, more and more states are filing with their Public Utility Commission to break the link between their profitability and use of energy, and that is putting us further on the side of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and trying to lower customer bills. So they're my 2 points for this morning, and we'll be taking questions. Thank you.
Questions?
And Mark, too.
Yes, please.
Roddy?
Roger, do you have a status of any pending? Hi, this is Rod White from Gas Daily. Roger, do you have any status report on any pending requests before any PSCs?
I don't have them in front of me, Rodney, but I'd be happy to give you those separately.
Gentlemen, can you go to the mic?
Yes.
Any questions?
Hi, John Rickman with the Energy Daily. This is for Christopher McGill. I just had a question about one of the last things you spoke about, the new peak, which appears to be in August. And I think you pointed to power generators as boosting that peak in August. Just wondering if you could expand on why the new peak. Is it part of a trend, or is it economic jitters this year?
If I showed you that graphic for all of 2007, you would see, as you see here, the amount of natural gas going to power generation through January through May being about 15 billion cubic feet per day. It would rise, it would fall, and it wouldn't come back again to 15 billion cubic feet per day until about mid-October. That's another 5-month cycle for natural gas demand. The graphic I've shown here is for 2008. I wanted to be as current as possible. We see the same shape. The peak for power generation somewhere over 30 billion cubic feet from that average of about 15. And if we went back to this graphic, you would see that the peak for home heating loads is about 50 billion cubic feet per day in January and February. So it's not as high, but in fact, we are getting more and more towards that winter season peak with the summer peak for natural gas. The other thing that I would point out with respect to this graphic is the area under the curve in red there for power generation in 2007 was about 6.5 trillion cubic feet. 10 years ago, it was 3.5 trillion cubic feet. So not only the absolute amount of gas going to electricity generators has gone up, but the shape of the curve is what's really important because it's anticipating that shape, which is so important. And now, instead of having just one cycle that is weather dependent during the winter heating season, we have another cycle for natural gas demand that is dependent on cooling loads. And so that is interjected into the market, that uncertainty about where the market will go based on the seasonality of the usage is something we see 10 months out of the year now, not just during the winter heating season. Sure.
Question for Roger, please. Rod White again from Gas Daily. Roger, has there been any change in the urgency to open up the OCS as a result